So now that Julio Jones is no longer an Atlanta Falcon, man, does that feel weird to say, we have Calvin Ridley as the #1 receiver for Atlanta, which we've actually seen before. This is not the first time this has happened because Julio was banged up last season, and honestly, I thought Ridley played great as a #1 receiver. So let's talk about what will happen now that he sort of has more of a #1 role. So we'll start off with this play, talking about what he does well. I wanted to look a little bit about how does he attack zone coverage, because this is something that I just thought of in general with Arthur Smith coming to town as their new head coach. How exactly is that going to work? And the play you see on the screen right now is like the Arthur Smith play. At least it was in Tennessee. Now, in fairness, I don't know how much he'll run plays like this now that he doesn't have Derrick Henry. Obviously, Henry was a huge part of why he ran the scheme he did, but still, let's talk about it for a second. So the way it works, very simple play. It's zone coverage. Ridley's running over the middle, and it's a play action. And watch Ridley's explosiveness here. Watch how explosive he is and how well he gets to his spot, gets wide open, and makes the catch. That's not a super high degree of difficulty type play, but he can rack up some massive yards that way. And again, that's the way a lot of guys actually do rack up some yards, is just those simple plays that don't seem too fancy, but next thing you know, a guy who you feel like is having an okay game has 120 yards or something like that. So that's one key thing. And, I know Pro Football Focus, they have some sort of, I don't know exactly how it works, but they gave some sort of tweet out that said who we expect to get the most yards next year, and Ridley was #1, and people were clowning on him for it, but I actually don't think it's that crazy, because I do think he'll get a ton of yards next year. And then there's a play like this, and one of the things I talk about with a receiver who can get yards in that way is also how do they build off of it, and the great poster child of that is Justin Jefferson, who got a ton of yards through a play that's very similar to the one I just showed you, but then he branched off it and got way more yards that way, and that's what turned him from a good receiver to a great receiver in just one season. Well, Ridley's the same way. I mean, he can do stuff like this where it's the same concept against a similar coverage, but the interesting thing is, it's a different route, and watch how he runs it. As you see, again, very explosive, and for a second, he slows down right at the beginning of the route, which kind of fooled the Chargers' corner into thinking maybe Ridley's going to be running over the middle. So then when Ridley then started running deep, he's like, oh, okay, it's a go route. Was not expecting it to be something else. So really good route running by Ridley. A lot of R's in that sentence. And it's true, though. I mean, it was a really well-ran route. And that is something that I like about Ridley a lot. He does kind of look like a smaller Julio Jones at times out there. He really does. Like right here, this play, a lot of what people want to talk about is going to be how he beats man coverage, because that's what's more fun when it comes to wide receivers. And, he is good at beating man coverage. He really is. This is man coverage. It's a simple slant route, but watch how he does this. Watch how right when this play starts, he kind of steps as though he's going to the outside a little bit. And that's something that I like that Ridley does, is Ridley makes things easier on himself. He didn't always do this his rookie season, but he's kind of one of those guys who has gotten better the more he's been in the NFL, and has done these little things, specifically in route running, to help himself out. Because you look at the corner who's covering him, and his hips are completely turned towards the outside, which is difficult when Ridley is actually running over the middle. And if you just simply ran the route you were going to run, this probably wouldn't get that open. It maybe would get a little open, but it'd be tough. But now that he did this, it makes things easier on himself. And watch, as you see, cuts back over the middle, wide open, and I mean, that's just as open as it gets in the NFL, and it's not a bad defensive play, it's a great offensive play, and that's what Ridley can bring to the table for Atlanta, and what he can do consistently is that route running, that explosiveness, and great footwork combined. This is why the Falcons drafted him with a first-round pick, even though it wasn't necessarily a huge position of need at the time. This one's another one. This one even more kind of crazy, and one of the things I like about Ridley is he's not afraid to really go all out trying to make a move. So very similar thing. It's a cover one play. The middle of the field is going to be open. Ridley's going to run in that direction. So on paper, it is a favorable matchup. But watch how he does this. Right when this play starts, I mean, look at how far over he's running towards the bottom of the screen, which is towards his left. Again, doing what he can to get the Kansas City corner to now have to turn his hips towards the sideline. This is perfect. This is just really smart stuff from Calvin Ridley. It's really, you can tell how much he's willing to go to get you to go in that direction. And really, you could say, oh, well, now that people see it on tape, they'll know not to bite on it too much. But then what? Then Ridley could be running a go route, and he'll get wide open. So you kind of have to respect it, but then Ridley can do this. Again, cuts over the middle, wide open and makes the catch, and also then just does, again, Julio Jones type stuff in open space. Look at how many more yards he's going to get on this play. That's a really good play right there from Calvin Ridley, a really impressive play. And honestly, I wanted to show that play just because of the first part of it. He then picks up like 40 more yards, and that's just kind of an add-on for me. Like, oh yeah, he can also do that. That's neat. But that's obviously way more valuable to a team, someone who can turn a 10-yard play into a 50-yard play. And he has that capability as well, along with his great route running. And then there's also just stuff like this. So it's going to be zone coverage, cover 2. You see the route he's running. It's going to kind of get into a gap in coverage. And, you know, this is another route running paired with explosiveness type play. Because watch how right when this play starts. So he's running, and it looks like he's just running deep. Again, route running is important, and one of the key things when it comes to route running is sometimes it's not about making a move at the line. Sometimes it's about the stem portion of the route, which is, you know, you think about it being a route tree, well, the stem. So the beginning part, when you're just going up, before you give away what you're actually doing, you want to kind of run every stem portion of your route the same way. Sometimes you can get a little creative and, you know, make it seem like you're doing one thing and doing something else. But worst case scenario, you want to just make sure you're not cheating in one direction that you're about to go to, because that can give stuff away. It's similar to like a poker face in poker. You want to look the same every hand so people won't realize you have a good hand. So then Ridley does cut. He cuts pretty well, and he's so explosive that he's able to pick up a big gain. So a lot of good stuff from Calvin Ridley, and he really has, I think, been dominant since he's, you know, especially last year. He's had, you know, quietly been improving year after year, and it's been very fun to watch. I think a lot of people, when you ask how good of a player is Calvin Ridley, they'll say, oh yeah, he's kind of like an 800-yard guy, right? Maybe an 1,000-yard receiver. Well, I kind of get it, because his first 2 years in the NFL, he had, you know, around 800 yards. But last year, he had over 1,300 yards. I don't think many people know that, along with 9 touchdowns. He was top 5 in the NFL in receiving yards last year, and one of those guys was a tight end, Travis Kelce. It was Diggs, Kelce, Hopkins, Jefferson, and Ridley. Those were the top 5, although he was actually tied for 5th with Devontae Adams. So tied for top 5, but still pretty impressive. And honestly, I don't think it's a fluke. You know, you had Julio Jones, who consistently got 1,400 yards. Maybe Ridley will become that guy. I don't think it's that out of the question. He's a really good player, and I think I wouldn't be shocked if in a few years we consider him like in that elite category. Maybe I'm getting a bit too high on him, but as of right now, he feels like a top 10 receiver to me. I don't know the 10, and maybe it's not quite top 10, but he feels like a top 10 receiver to me. He's that quality. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.